Are you all right? Might I offer you a hand up? Very bizarre finding you, or anyone indeed, out this late. Especially given events of the past few months. Do you have an explanation? Well, of course. You're free to go wherever you please, however. This is a time when we all must be quite careful. It's only out of concern for your well-being that I ask. You seem a bit pallid. You might be slurring your words a bit. Have you been drinking? No. Well, you do know where you are. Of course, in knowing where you are aware of events that have occurred in the area over the past few months. I am indeed referring to the leather apron, the Whitechapel murderer. Well, you somewhat fit the description of his recent victims, and I would be worried if I were you, being out by yourself in the middle of the night, in otherwise dark, empty alley with only the moon to keep you company. Yes, indeed. Well, DOS money can be difficult to come by in these times. In fact, it seems to be one of the elements that our perpetrator relies upon. Those who are down on their luck. Those who are forced to do things they might otherwise prefer not to, simply to have a place to sleep, a place to lay their head. Yes, the hounds are of no help at all. Well, might I get some information from you? At least while I'm here. You should be somewhat safe, as safe as I can guarantee you. In fact, our Ripper, as some are calling him, constabulary, only strikes when his victims are alone. The last one was interrupted and had to flee the scene. Unfortunately, it was too late for the victim. But his work was interrupted nonetheless. So, would you mind just take some notes, if that's all right? So what are you doing in this part of town? And where did you come from? The Horse and Hound. That's right down the street. You have not traveled very far. Ah, yes, you needed a brief rest. I understand that. Sost. And where, if I might ask, are you headed? DOS is DOS, right? There are many such institutions, and certainly some worse than others, but none of them are ideal. All right. How long have you been here, if I might ask? And you wouldn't happen to have seen anyone, would you? No, no. Well, that's good to know, yes. No men traveling alone. I think in response to what's been going on, most people are taken to traveling in pairs or groups. Not you, though. It's strange you say you've been here for the better part of an hour. This is my beat, and I come by every 25 minutes or so. I did not see you last I was here. Time is an artificial construct. Lunchtime, doubly so. Sure, of course. I understand. Well, what you're suffering from is a high level of alcohol in your blood, which causes your faculties to dull somewhat, and your perception of time might be affected by that. Yes. So you've seen no one, or no single males. Were you awake? Your eyes were open, but you did not seem aware of me when I came around. That's all right. Trying to establish timetables is one of the things that we constables spend a lot of time doing. It's not much fun, but when everything clicks into place, if in fact it ever does, it can be quite a satisfying feeling. Are you cold? Just for my records, do you mind if I do a quick sketch of your face? If you could just look right at me. That should do it. And your name is? It's a nickname, I presume. Ah, yes, okay, from your last name. Understood. Quite a striking resemblance, if I do say so myself. Anyway, so quite happy to tell you a bit more about our predator, our cowardly predator, before going on my way. And I think, in fact, you should probably soon be going on your way as well. Yes, he stalks the streets of Whitechapel. And he has a rather distinct method. It's quite grotesque, I'm afraid. Don't wish to upset you, but for whatever it's worth, it seems that his victims are dispatched quite quickly, typically with a slice across the throat, prior to the remainder of his work, which is indeed grotesque in nature. Some of the evidence we've collected, I'm happy to share some of it with you, but there are obviously things that we are keeping from public knowledge, so we can weed out the attention seekers from those who are truly guilty. It's astounding, actually, the number of people who wish that they themselves were the Ripper. He carries something like this, which is a hypodermic needle package. And inside, as you might expect, it contains a hypodermic needle. It's quite bizarre to me. Even now, as we near the turn of the century, I would imagine that in the not too distant future, we will look back on this method of administering medicine, that is to say, the taking of a needle and puncturing the skin as if stabbing to administer medication. I would guess it shan't be long, a decade or two at most, when we will look back on this practice as barbaric. Surely there is a better way, a less violent way. But yes, he has used hypodermic needles like this, usually to administer some kind of knockout medication to render his victims helpless, although he also possesses some fair amount of strength and speed. Most of the victims he selects would not be much of a match for him, with or without the aid of a sedative. What else can I share with you? Well, if you're really interested, I can't imagine why you would be. He often removes the scarf of his victim because he's prone to cutting so deeply in the throat that the head is occasionally near being decapitated. And he has in the past removed items, organs, like this eye. In any other circumstances would be a beautiful eye. Hazel green. A bit bloodshot, but in the circumstances, I think that could be overlooked. If you'd like to take a closer look, of course. One thing to bear in mind is that whenever you take a close look at something, especially an eye, it also takes a close look into you. So you can see the pupil is quite tightly constricted. But there's normal blood. The scarf has absorbed most of it. It's quite fascinating when you look at any organ of the body closely. You can really see the details. So much vascular growth. So much going on, even in the simplest of organs. Not that the eye is a simple organ by any stretch of the imagination. But nevertheless, I personally carry around a magnifying glass just for the studying of whatever objects I might come across, as I am a constable, also consider myself a man of science. And this eye, it speaks to me. Does it not speak to you? Not even a little. And then there are other mutilations. Our Jack has performed slightly less subtle. In fact, he's gone so far as to remove the entire left hand of one of his victims. Odd, we have discovered through the studying of the slices that he makes that it's most likely that he himself is left-handed, so it's probably no coincidence that he removed the left hand of this particular victim. What sort of meaning does it have to maim and to kill and then to butcher a victim and remove their hand? It could be seen as an expression of power, the exertion of power over another, removing their ability to ever grasp anything again, although surely killing does that more effectively than removing a hand. But who can know the mind of a psychopath? Of course, maybe psychopath is too strong of a word for our Jack. After all, he targets only a very particular type of person. In his mind, he might be seeing himself as doing the world a favor, and as atrocious and misguided as that is, I don't think we could go so far as to call that kind of behavior psychopathic. It shows an empathy, misguided empathy, certainly, but empathy nonetheless. He's also a bit of a common thief. He's stolen shillings, tuppence. He doesn't usually find much on his marks, and highly unlikely that his goal is theft. It's just an added bonus. I wonder if he thinks about how the money came to be in the possession of the victims he targets, as he holds the money in his hands. Perhaps he imagines the long, circuitous path the money might have taken before it reached its final destination, the breeches or dress pockets of the victim. He might find some pleasure in using that money to buy drinks for potential future victims. Who can know? Surely not me. And I doubt you either. A strange person he was. I say was, but of course I mean is, although sometimes in cases like this, the perpetrator only really exists while the act is being committed, and then to others and even to himself he disappears and becomes someone else for a time, until the hunger eats at him again, and he is driven to act. Are you sure you're all right? You do look a little... You do look a bit less drunk than before. That's good, of course. We also found these Airpod Pros on him. Very interesting, well-crafted devices. Imagine my dismay when I discovered that the device that you need in order to use these Airpod Pros will not be invented for another 120 years or so. It's too long to wait. They're not going to do me any good at all. Makes makes me wonder if there's some sort of Time Lord about. Dancing from era to era as another might dance from block to block. Bringing in, depositing artifacts like reverse time capsules for people to find. Oh well. And then, of course, the knife he uses. Now, clearly, this is not the actual knife that our Jack uses, but it is very similar. Similar in size, similar in that it's double-bladed. Quite sharp. Has a blood gutter running along one side. Please do take a closer look. You can see the blood gutter running right along here. Approximately 5 inches in length. Extremely, extremely sharp. From what our coroners can tell, this knife is almost an exact duplicate of the knife that Jack uses. So, beware anyone you may see. No, I mean, in general. Beware of people with knives. Full stop. I think we could say that much safely. But in particular, beware of men with that style of knife. Men with that style of knife roaming these alleyways late at night, looking for victims. Right, well, I dare say it seems you've sobered up quite a bit. Why not let me accompany you back to your boarding house? Make sure you arrive safely, of course. No, it would be my pleasure. No, really, I insist. No, I'm afraid I truly must insist. No, I have nothing to do. I mean, well, yes, I'm a police constable, so I've got a lot to do, and one of the things that I am supposed to do is make sure that potential victims like yourself arrive home safely. So, really, it's part of the job. Really, in a way, it would be a dereliction of my duty were I not to accompany you home. So, I'm afraid I must insist. Yes, let's get going. It's not far, is it? I don't think it's far. Not far? No? Okay, well, you take your time, go ahead and get up. Right. Oh my gosh. Look at that over there. Oh my goodness, you won't believe what I'm looking at. Look, there's a thing over there it's very important that you see immediately. Yes. Look over there, look. Silly. Wave.